Hey folks, Josh here for another vlog episode. I hope you can hear me okay. You probably can pretty well because of the beauty of AI and technology and that kind of stuff with the studio editing. That, by the way, takes me one click thanks to technology. But for the first time this season, we actually have our heater on. So there is a little bit of a buzz in the background. But like I said, hopefully you don't even hear that because the editing is really good. And hopefully your week has gone well. We're back for another weekly update if it's your first time watching. Pretty straightforward. I'm a family lawyer based in the Greater Toronto Area, also the co-founder of a tech company. We build tech that helps law firms practice more efficiently. And I pretty much share my week in businesses, right? So what I've been working on, how things are going, tips, lessons, stories. And then my favorite topic as well, maybe my favorite topic is the current books that I've either finished reading in the last week and or am currently reading at this time. So I'll talk about that at the end. So I'll just jump right in because, hey, that's what the heck you're here for. And I'd say it was on average from like one being not that busy, 10 being super busy, and five being about average. I'd say this week was actually about a five. I don't really know why. I find, and maybe you can relate to this, especially if you're a smaller business owner. Like, hey, I'll be honest, I don't make millions and millions of dollars yet. And when you have a smaller business, things can really ebb and flow. You can have a super insane week or two, and then you can just have a quieter week or two, and that's just kind of how it happens. And I would say, especially on my law firm side, I have a few files that are just in a bit of a lull. So I do mostly litigation file work for family law. So for those who don't know, that's the fun stuff like separation, divorce, child custody, that kind of stuff. And what I'm seeing is that these litigation files are super ebb and flowy, right? So it's like you're either like really going hard, negotiating, preparing for a court appearance, and then you might have a lull where you're not talking too much to the other side, you're waiting for the next court date, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say I actually have a good chunk of my files that were a bit of a lull this week, which was kind of nice, especially because I did have case conference materials due this week for one of my files. So again, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of like all the little litigation stuff. Unless you're curious, let me know in the comments and maybe you want me to go deeper. But I do have a court appearance next Friday. And so our documents were due this week, right? So for those who don't know, again, maybe you've been watching too much Suits or, in the movies, you don't just show up to court and like whip documents out of your back pocket and stuff like that, right? At least here in Ontario, depending on the type of court appearance, you have a specific due date of when you have to serve your documents on the other party and then file them in court, right? So everything's kind of prepped ahead of time. And so I spent a lot of time on the side of my practice preparing the brief for my conference next week, which was relatively straightforward, a fair amount of going back and forth with the client just to make sure that we had covered all of our bases, got all the details correct. This is my first appearance with him specifically. And so usually the first one takes the most amount of time. And then for subsequent court appearances, you can copy and paste a lot of what you'd used previously and just provide an update since that court appearance. You're not like starting from scratch, so to speak. So that was pretty straightforward. I'd say went pretty well. Had a couple consultations, a couple back and forths with some opposing counsel on some of my files to hopefully move them forward. But I would say nothing too crazy on the law firm side, which was kind of nice because it was a pretty busy summer. I do have a big kind of like next month ahead because I have potentially three. No, I think I have three court appearances in November. So November will be a little bit busier in that regards, at least in terms of preparing documents for it and stuff like that. But that's what I enjoy. And if you listen to the last vlog or podcast episode of mine, I shared, and if you haven't listened to it, I biasly recommend going to do so because I shared a little bit more about why I made the switch over to family law. So anyways, if you want more of this story, definitely check that out. And I guess so if we switch gears now over to Visto, Vista was a pretty interesting week. I had some good calls with some interesting law firms. So right now our product helps immigration law firms because I used to practice immigration law for years and years and years, as I explained in the previous episode. And so I had some good chats with a few somewhat big immigration firms, which is great because our product has really become quite robust. and in a few ways does a few things that I don't think exist on the market elsewhere. So for example, automatically filling out these complex XFA PDF forms. I think we might be the only product on the market that can do that. We recently launched a Chrome extension that can autofill online government forms because now the government is moving more of these forms online. And so just some of these really cool, niche, robust features, and it, really helps differentiate. So what I would say, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn earlier this week, it got me thinking of, if you're going to be building tech now, especially with AI, you really got to go niche, in my opinion, because if you're too broad or you're too generic, then you're just going to get eaten up by the big players. So for example, like I was poking around this week in my Google workspace, because for my law firm, I use Google. For Visto, we also use Google. But for my law firm, I have the even more upgraded version because I wanted e-signatures. And that's just one example where Google Workspace, Microsoft Office, they now build so many features in automatically with AI layered on top that if you're going to build a product and it's too generic, they're just going to automate you out, right? So for example, like I upgraded my Google account because now they offer built-in e-signature. So I don't need HelloSign, DocuSign, like I don't need a generic e-signature tool, right? Similarly, if you're doing like, I don't know, what's another good example? Note taking or even like finance. Like I stopped using billing. I still use QuickBooks for bookkeeping for Visto, but things like generating invoices, I still just use Google. I docket my time in Google Sheets, and then I can just prompt AI inside the Google Sheet to generate an updated invoice by taking all my dockets. So if you are a creator, if you're a builder, if you're a techie, if you're looking to get into a startup, I think the key to solving that is you have to go super niche and or vertical. So pick one industry, one profession, and build custom workflows with AI layered on top for those types of people, pre-built, super niche, super robust, right? So for example, build a workflow solution for family lawyers in Ontario, or build a automation platform for B2B SaaS marketers in America, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why that's important is if you go super niche, then you know the exact systems and processes and you can build them all out of the box so that, Google's not going to automate Canadian immigration form filling, right? So anyways, that's just my spiel there based on how the last few weeks have gone on the Visto side, which have been pretty good. I've also been running our school community. So I tried out school and I'm running a community there for legal professionals, specifically related to learning more about AI, implementing it in their practice, using it for creating content, stuff like that. And it's going pretty well. It's pretty fun. I'm definitely liking the platform and enjoying it so far. I think it's too early to tell. Our community's only been live for about 2 weeks. So I'll have to keep you posted sort of, as things progress. So lastly, I will continue and I don't know where the pause button went. So I might have to figure out a way of how to pause this recording after. But anyways, on to books. So I finished earlier this week. I mentioned it, I think, in the last episode. I finished a reread of Crushing It by Gary V. And I reread this book probably every year or two. And the main reason being, especially if you're bullish on content creation, building your personal brand, I don't know if there's a better book in terms of getting you motivated and excited to do it, if that makes sense. So the book is really good for giving you the basics of why brand building is such a good opportunity, how to approach it, what key things you need to keep in mind. And then the only problem with the book is the second half of the book breaks down platform by platform how to approach them. So for example, there's a section on, because Crushing It, the version I have is maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years old. So for example, it doesn't mention TikTok. It mentions Musical.ly, which I don't even know if that's around anymore. So if you can pick up the most recent version, do it. It's really good though. Either way, I still read it. Maybe I skim part of the second half of the book, but just the overall lessons. And the cool part about the most updated version is they include stories of people who read the first version of the book and applied it and are doing really well. The stories are super interesting. They're lessons in and of themselves. So if you are interested in building your personal brand and content creation, I would highly recommend giving it a read. Now I'm about 50% of the way through the concise version of a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. This book is really friggin' good. And part of what happened was I heard a podcast where they interviewed Robert Greene a week ago. And I was like, oh yeah, he's so smart, because I do have his book, 48 Laws of Power, which I'll probably reread. And he specifically mentioned this book, Mastery. And so I wanted to go pick it up. I'll do a full review probably next week when I'm done the book. But the long story short is, it talks about how to become a master at something. And so, for example, the first part of the book is talking about, well, finding your calling. Like, what are you going to be a master of? Don't just be the master of something random. Think back to your childhood. Think back to your passions. Think back to your strengths, etc., etc. And there's some really interesting, thought-provoking, lines and paragraphs and suggestions in there. Then he talks about the journey. So first you should have an quote unquote apprenticeship, right? So you should learn under a mentor or a teacher or a professor or, whatever it is for your specific industry. And you should spend some time learning under experts or masters themselves. And then you should blah and blah, 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 right? I haven't gotten much further than that, but super interesting. I'm reading that. I should be done it this week. And then I also got the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. So I'll probably read that next. And then I'll probably loop back and do a reread of the 48 Laws of Power. So if you're interested in, or, have any interest in Robert Greene and his writings, then stay tuned, because over the next probably month, I'll hopefully read, I don't know if I'll get through, because I bought for Mastery the concise version. So it's about, I want to say maybe 200 pages. 33 Strategies of War is a big book. 48 Laws of Power is a big book. So it might take me some time to get through them, but I'll share updates along the way, and I'll share some key takeaways along the way. So I would say, if you're interested in mastering something, or you're feeling a little bit lost and you're not sure what you should be working on, it's a great book that'll take you back to the basics of, like, here's what you should be thinking about. Here are some exercises you can do with yourself to analyze your childhood, early in life, passions, blah, 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 to try to figure out what you should be spending your time on. So I highly recommend that. And yeah, that's it for this week. Hopefully your week has gone well. It's the Thanksgiving long weekend up here in Canada, so I'll probably take most or all of Monday off to spend some time with family, relax, and all that kind of stuff. If you're celebrating as well, hope you enjoy. If you're not, then I don't know what to tell you. But hopefully your week went well either way. Hopefully your next one goes well, and I will make sure to update you next week on the next episode of the vlog. So that's it for me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.